is a week of the fill-in guys. Hey, Mark Davis, proud to be one of them. Proud to be two of them, actually, if you spread it out across the week, because I have today, I have tomorrow, and that means you and I get to spend time today just answering the musical question, what the heck is going on and what do we think of it? What's going on is an enormously, deliciously loaded question. For those, if we haven't met, I'm Mark Davis. I host the Happy Morning Show at 6:60 a.m. The Answer in the building in which I sit right here hard by the eastern border of DFW Airport, saying hi to North Texas every morning and coming back in the afternoon when they ask me to here along the Salem Radio Network and on the Salem News Channel. If you are watching, we appreciate however you are consuming the Hugh Hewitt Show. He'll be back next week. And of course, obviously, anytime Hugh is gone, it's an old adage. And it used to be intermittently true, and now it's universally true. Anytime any talk show host goes on vacation or goes anywhere, you just know something huge is going to happen. It's mathematically obvious. Who can go anywhere? I mean, this week we've had amazing things happen in terms of the anticipation of the Alaska summit with Trump and Putin and Zelensky playing some role. There's enormous amount of reaction to President Trump federalizing the Washington, D.C. police and enacting and grabbing a hold of the reins of the District of Columbia, because he gets to do that. Because D.C. is not a state and never should be. D.C. is not in a state and never should be. So among the things we'll talk about, so just get ready with a phone number. In fact, hop on board and get in line now if you want to. In our very next segment, we're going to talk to my friend John Lott, who is the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. And you might remember him from a wonderful book some years ago called More Guns, Less Crime. Love that title, love him, love the logic, and he has broadened himself out considerably in taking a look at all kinds of crime issues, all kinds of things involving immigration, all kinds of things involving street crime, all kinds of things involving borders. So John Lott will be with us next segment, but you can be with us anytime throughout the program. And here's some of the things we're going to take a walk through, and I'd love to do it with your help and your thoughts at 1-800-520-1234, 1-800-520-1234. This has been just another example of the Democrat Party painting itself into a corner. I'd like to think these people have some type of brainstem. I mean, they get to be liberal, they get to be wildly leftist. They are. But the point at which it becomes very nearly suicidal. And I know that's wishful thinking, and I'm being very metaphoric and very hyperbolic here. I don't want anybody to die. Only some ideas to die on the vine of disfavor in the American public. The Democrat Party has spent the last few years, and this is apart from telling us absolutely unforgivably that Joe Biden was fine to serve another 4 years. There's got to be consequences for that. But they are now the pro-crime party. They are now pro-crime. And if that seems, well, nobody's pro-crime, I'm sorry. We used to say that nobody is pro-illegal immigration, but they actually are. When you actively don't want borders, to do so is to favor waves of illegals. You are pro-illegal immigration. They used to say, oh, nobody's pro-abortion. They're just pro-choice, and whatever people do, they ought to have that choice, blah, blah, blah. No. Some of them absolutely dance on the altar of abortion as a sacred sacrament. And now they're pro-crime. It's like I am writing this script. They are pro-crime. So what's the logic for that? When you have an opportunity, when you have a possibility of ushering in more law enforcement, this is also a math problem. More cops, it's like John Lott's book, More Guns, Less Crime, more cops, less crime. If criminals are out there plying their evil trade in Washington or any large city, and they just know there's a lot more law enforcement than there was last week, some of them, not all of them, some of them are going to go, maybe I need to rethink my plans. Maybe I just need to grab a movie instead. There is going to be less crime. And that is what scares the Democrat Party to death right now, because like the borders, it's going to go like it did with borders. The Democrat Party will say, we don't really need borders. Trump's an authoritarian. He's Hitler. He hates brown people. That's what's behind this border thing. So Trump becomes president. We learn instantly that we did not need a whole raft of new laws or a whole bunch of months and years of hearings to come up with a comprehensive immigration plan. We didn't need new laws. All we needed was a new president. We got one. The border is fixed. Now, I don't pretend that crime is going to be fixed in a way that it just goes away or reduces to near zero like border incursions have. But the stuff of nightmares of the Democrat Party today, August 13th, is that the coming days, August 14, 15, 16, into the weekend and for the rest of a long, hot summer in Washington, it's going to work. That there will indeed be fewer murders, that there will indeed be fewer carjackings, and that scares them to death. You know what the inverse of that is? And this is so sad and so true at the same time. There are Democrats right now, if we were able to carve a secret deal and say, guys, if you could rub a genie's lamp, have the genie come out and give you a wish and nobody would know what you wished for, would you wish for additional carnage in D.C.? Would you wish for more carjackings? Would you wish for more families to mourn the loss of a loved one? Would you wish for more violent crime just so you can deliver Trump and I told you so? I think you would be shocked at the number of people who would take that deal. The pro-crime party now actively wants this to fail. They actively wanted the border to fail. It's not, and this isn't going to either. It has also led to some wisdom on homelessness. People experiencing homelessness. I don't have time in the day to shoehorn that many syllables into every term once it's recrafted by whoever. Homeless people, they are homeless. Of course they're people. They're homeless people. And why? More often than not, their minds are addled by some pathological mental dysfunction, or they've done it to themselves with rampant drug abuse. Both situations are horrible. And as human beings, we care about these people getting better. And the logic, I use that term loosely, that's been used so far is that the way to be kind to these people is to let them sprawl in their own squalor on the streets of America. That to move them somewhere else, that is somehow cruel. I would suggest that the ultimate cruelty is to leave them festering in tent cities on the streets of America's cities. It's not good for them. Heaven knows it's not good for the residents of the neighborhood, not good for business, really not good for tourism. And so this cries out for a solution. So there's a three-pronged menu of choices there available to the people experiencing homelessness in Washington, D.C. The first is they can remove themselves from the sidewalks where they're living, and they can show up at a homeless shelter. More on that in a moment, because I'm the conservative guy, not looking to spend more money on anything, right? Might be one thing, homeless shelters. And maybe the second thing, because their second choice is get off the sidewalk and go to a mental health facility or an addiction treatment center. And we might need more of those. And you know what? If we do, then I'm all for that as well. And the third option, of course, is jail. And we might need more of those too. But one thing ain't going to happen, these folks sprawling on the street indefinitely. It's another problem that people said, we can't solve it. Trump comes in and says, hold my beer, which of course he would never say because he doesn't drink beer. All right, Mark Davison for Hugh Hewitt. John Lott next on this issue. Some Trump and Zelensky and Putin. We'll talk about that with you. Grab a line, 1-800-520-1234. It's going to be a great day.
Hold it right there. I'm back from vacation. Not really. I pre-recorded this on Friday. It's my Relief Factor segment because I take Relief Factor with me on vacation just like I take it every day on this program. And we're going to remind you every hour, even when I'm out on vacation, that Relief Factor does indeed work. If you take it every single day, you will feel much better because it works with your body's anti-inflammatory system to reduce the minor aches and pains that come with exercise and aging. You should be doing the former. You're definitely doing the latter. Every day, Relief Factor means more and more to a comfortable life. Stop using the over-counter meds. Try it the old-fashioned way. Icarian, curcumin, resveratrol, omega, and the starter pack, $19.95, gets you 3 weeks of Relief Factor. You take 3 on the first day, every day for the first week, 2 on the second week, every day on the second week, and then 1 on the third week, and then forever after. 1-800, the number 4 in the word relief, 1-800, the number 4 in the word relief, or visit their website, relieffactor.com. Find that starter pack for $19.95, less than $1 a day at relieffactor.com.
I always like to bring a little chart history with us. 50 years ago right now, the revamped Fleetwood Mac, that first album with Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham, had come out, and this is the very last track on it, and I'm so afraid. And by the time I got to the last track on this, I was just exhausted with how good it was. And of course, then would come Rumors and Landslide and Go Your Own Way and so many things. So they had gotten rid of who? It was Bob Welch who left. And they bring in Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham. And well, the rest, as they say, is history. Now, here's a guy who's had an interesting history analyzing crime with that wonderful book that I mentioned last segment, More Guns, Less Crime. 1-800-520-1234, a number. We're talking D.C. crime, anticipation for Trump and Zelensky. And we're going to hop to your calls in our very next segment. So if you're on hold, do not move. It's a pleasure to welcome the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, longtime friend of mine, great author, great guy analyzing such things, John Lott from the mountains of Montana. John, where are you? Where do we find you every time we talk?
Right now I'm in Utah, but I appreciate that.
So same thing.
Great talking to you.
I'm kidding. Whatever it is, I know it's picturesque, and thanks for taking time out of that day to talk to us. So you have a wonderful piece in Real Clear Politics that says that these Trump administration efforts could not only sharply reduce D.C. crime, but I have a feeling there are lessons to be learned here. And I wonder what your thoughts are first on it's funny. Let's start as simply as we can. You wrote More Guns, Less Crime. Let's begin with the premise 101, more cops, more law enforcement, less crime. It should be obvious.
You would hope so. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's a pretty simple point. If you want to reduce crime, you have to make it risky and costly for criminals to commit crime. And you can do that with higher arrest rates, higher conviction rates, longer prison sentences. You can also do it with allowing victims to be able to go and defend themselves. The one thing I'll say about Democrats in places like Washington, D.C. or other cities that they control, at least they're consistent. They don't want to make it riskier in terms of law enforcement, and they don't want to make it riskier in terms of letting people be able to go and defend themselves. I mean, you go look at D.C. D.C. has about 1,300 patrol officers in the city. Not more than about 400 are on duty at any point in time. You have 400 people on duty to go and protect 721,000 people. The statements from the head of the police union there saying about how stretched out the police are and just how overwhelmed they are with their work. You can understand that. When the first night Trump was able to put another 830 boots on the ground there, that's a huge increase in what they're able to do. So you're going to see increases in arrest rates. And under the Biden administration, basically the U.S. attorney for D.C. is the one who's responsible for prosecuting adult crimes. In 2022, the Biden appointee there refused to prosecute 67% of the arrests that were made. Even in 2023, he refused to prosecute over 55% of the arrests that were made there. So you're not arresting people because of the lack of police. You're not, and there are other restrictions that DC has put on police and how they're able to go and operate. And you're not prosecuting the people. And then even when you do prosecute them, they're not getting much of a penalty. And so, particularly for juvenile offenses. And so is it surprising that you have such high juvenile crime? One thing that's kind of amazing is if you just compare DC to other states or the Puerto Rico in this country. If you look at 2023, which is the final year for FBI data, you see that the murder rate is 54% higher in DC than it is for the next highest state, which is New Mexico. The violent crime rate is 54% higher. The robbery rate in DC is like 955% higher than the average robbery rate across the United States. I mean, these are startling numbers. And while some of these
speaking of numbers, with so many numbers at your disposal, which is part of your great value every time we talk, do you believe the Democrat pushback when they say, hey, this is needless? Crime in D.C. is at, let's all say it together, a 30-year low. Is it?
Right. Well, to be honest, we don't really know what the crime rate is in D.C. right now, in part because of basically claims about corruption in terms of them collecting the crime data. The DC Police Union has talked about how officers have been ordered to kind of, when they write their police reports, to take what would have been felonies and reclassify them as misdemeanors so that they won't show up in the data that the city reports or in the FBI data that's there. And we have no idea how extensive this is or how far it's gone back. But there's another problem that exists there, and it's something you and I have talked about in other forums, and that's you have two different types of crime numbers. You have data on crime reported to police, and that's what the FBI data is and what we're talking about for DC. And you have data on total crimes from the Bureau of Justice Statistics. Now, we only have that nationally, but the thing is, we know that only about 43% of violent crimes are reported to police and only about 30% of property crimes to police. And over the last few years after COVID, the measures that we have of total crime and the measures that we have of reported crime have gone in very different directions. While the number of reported crimes have remained flat or slightly fallen, the Bureau of Justice Statistics numbers indicate that we've had record percentage increases in total crimes. During the first 3 years of the Biden administration, we had a 55% increase in their measure of total crimes that were occurring. You know, that's more than twice as large as the largest previous increase that we had ever recorded back in like 2006. And
this
so
is wonderful. Good. 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I'm sure what's going to happen is crime's going to fall in DC. And and maybe other cities around the country will begin to get the idea, and constituents say, look, if they can go and do this in DC, why can't we do it in our places? Make it costly. I know lots of Democrats want to claim that law enforcement doesn't matter, that you can replace police officers with social welfare workers.
Social workers.
but hopefully, people will get the message on this. And Trump has already done other, like going after criminal illegal aliens, which I think has helped reduce crime nationwide. And one can talk about that more too.
Well, any opportunity to talk with you about this is vital. John Lott, find him and find the crime prevention research center and everything they do on guns, on crime, on solutions, etc. John Lott, thank you very, very much. Appreciate it. Okay, next up, we're going to go to your calls. 1-800-520-1234. I think we've got we got a free half hour here at the back end of the first hour to talk about crime, to talk about homelessness, and also I'm going to weave in a little bit. I've got a couple of lists of things with me here. What is Putin going to want, and what is Zelensky going to want when Trump gets together, perhaps with both of them, in Alaska, going north to Alaska? The rush is on in anticipation for what might be an end to that war. So let's go. Open season, your thoughts. 1-800-520-1234. Mark Davis in for you. You're next on the show. The unmistakable Neil Young, Bound for Glory. His album Old Ways was released this week in 1985. Going back for a little chart history there. Alrighty, let us go ahead and take a look at some of your calls as soon as I share with you some really important messaging from our friends at Consumer Cellular. Have you looked at your cell phone bill lately? How much data are you actually using? How much are you buying? Have you looked at all the hidden fees and surcharges? Or have you noticed that your bill has gone up recently? We have help. After you check your bill, check out Consumer Cellular, where you really get savings without sacrifice. Just takes about 20 minutes to switch. You'll get $25 off using the code HUGH25. HUGH 25. Call 1-800-411-4454, 1-800-411-4454, or log on to consumercellular.com/Hugh. New customers get a $5 credit on the first 5 monthly invoices. Consumercellular.com/Hugh for details. And don't forget, if you're 50 or up, 2 unlimited lines for $60. That is $30 each line, unlimited. You can better manage your cost of living, your essential expenses by using Consumer Cellular, and get $25 off using the promo code HUGH25 savings without the sacrifice. Use the promo code HUGH25 or call 1-800-411-4454. All right, to your calls. We are in Southington, Connecticut, and Angela, Mark Davis in for Hugh. How are you?
Hello.
Hi, Angela.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. I just wanted to make a comment. I just recently heard Tamara Tarpinian Jakim, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, the mother whose son, the congressional intern, was killed in Washington, D.C. Not too long ago. And she had reacted to Trump talking about the violence and crime in D.C. and what was going on. It just boggles my mind how the Democrats try to renegotiate reality to suit their narrative when it comes to, things that hurt the people. And when she spoke out, as a mother who has lost a son as well, it is the worst pain that anyone can imagine. And if what Trump is doing would stop just one more mother from having to feel that pain, then it's worth it.
Angela, thank you. There's eloquence to that I can't deliver, and so thank you enormously for that perspective from your own body of experience. It's funny, she mentions the Democrats renegotiating reality, and real people are hurt as a result. This isn't like policy A and policy B, where I might like this or you might like that, or conservative versus liberal. All of these things are conservative versus liberal. But when you don't have borders, it hurts people. When you don't sufficiently stop crime, it hurts people. When you carve up children because of gender lunacy, real people are hurt. When you leave homeless people to just fester on the sidewalks, that hurts people. These are not just bad ideas intellectually. These ideas from the left these days are genuinely, demonstrably harmful to people. And so now the only trick is trying to get people to understand that. All righty, we're understanding a lot of things as we work our way to Port St. Lucie, Florida. Mark Davis, welcome to the Hugh Hewitt Show. How you doing?
Thank you, Mark. I'm doing fine. I just wanted to say I enjoyed listening to you all those years on Rush. God rest his giant soul.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Yeah. I kind of believe that you oversimplified the homeless problem with your 3 choices, and if you'll give me a minute, I'll explain why.
Sure.
Let's take jail off the list, because as conservatives, we can't go filling up jails with homeless people. For one thing, it's unrealistic, and you take bed space away from true criminals who really hurt people. Can we agree on that? I mean,
all right. Let's spend a moment on it.
Okay.
Because,
go ahead.
Well, actually, I tell you what. Go ahead, because we got about a minute. Go ahead and finish your points, and then I'll probably take them in the next segment.
The other 2 choices you offered were mental health and homeless shelters.
Right.
Well, mental health, they only give you 72 hours, and you have to be Baker acted in, and there's an exceedingly small amount of beds in in mental health facilities, and also there's very small numbers of beds in homeless shelters. So your idea that it sounded really good, but it's completely unrealistic, especially when you talk about a whole city filled up with homeless people.
I am glad I let you complete that, because you have great points on all of them. The solutions will be hard, maybe for some conservatives to hear, but I'm the guy to deliver tough truths, and I'll do it next. Thank you enormously, Mark, for your call. 1-800-520-1234. Give us a shout. You can be next. Mark Davis in for you, and whenever I'm filling in, I always go straight to the calendar and see who the birthdays are. That is the great Dan Fogelberg, 1974, Part of the Plan, from an album called Souvenirs, an album produced by the great Joe Walsh. Now, obviously, he would then go on to do Heart Hotels, leader of the band, Longer, one of the great Christmas records of all time, Same Old Lang Syne. Dan Fogelberg died back in 2007. And if you want a Fogelberg album, you got to pick just one. 1975, Captured Angel, Thank Me Later. And call me later, or call me now, 1-800-520-1234. As we head back to your calls on a wide variety of things, we are out in Montana. Nancy, Mark Davis, in for you. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing great, and thank you, Mark. It's good to hear your voice again. I have 2 talking points. I support President Trump's attempt to end the war between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine, as you know, is a very, very corrupt country. And President Zelensky doesn't seem to want to end it because he loves the power grab there. And any way that we can get out of that mess, I'm 100% for it. And I just want to say that the Washington, D.C. cleanup, it's long overdue. According to my research, 70 homeless camps have been removed already. Many of the people living in these were illegal aliens. They are being collected, and they will be deported out of our country. And it's just a straight win for the American people in the United States of America. We just can't allow the capital of our country go to heck the way it has been. It has to be cleaned up. And President Trump is doing his job for us. This is why we voted for him. That's his job as president, to take care of our country and we the people.
Nancy, thanks for the perspective out there. Big Sky Country. Appreciate you. This is 2 things in reply to Nancy's point. Number one, this is should be personal to all of us. I am a native Texan. I was born in Texas. I will die in Texas. I have been back in my native Texas doing talk shows for 31 years after skirting around through a lot of places. But my childhood, the formative, like when you're 2 to when you graduate from college, was for the most part in the suburbs of D.C. because my dad was in the Air Force and he was stationed at the Pentagon and at Andrews. So military family, but except for a couple of years in London where Dad worked at the Air Force attaché in the embassy there, I was growing up in the same house in Camp Springs in Prince George's County, Maryland. So a weekend of fun was to go the National Mall with the Capitol and the Smithsonian buildings and the Washington Monument and all the monuments was my weekend playground. It's where you would go. By the time when I got into high school and college, to head into, Georgetown, of course, or to head into D.C., that was high gloss date night. Hey, let's go somewhere along the Connecticut Avenue corridor, or go somewhere that's really cool, or, go see. So these I was walking these streets as a kid. Now I'm a kid in the 70s for the most part, but then I got to go back and do shows at WRC in Washington from 1990 to 94. You could say it had changed. There was a murder spree going on, 400 plus. Now we're more in the 200 and some level of murders. So is that better than in the Marion Barry, Sharon Pratt Kelly era? Yes. But is that where the bar is set? Is that where like 200 and some murders, we're supposed to be good with that? I don't believe for a minute that crime is at a 30-year low. And I'm going to tell you something. Even if there are fewer just countable murders and violent crimes, this is where it gets a smidge uncomfortable. It's where they're happening. It's where do they happen? And it's not that a crime that happens in Southeast, in Anacostia, or in the Navy Yard neighborhood is less noticeable because, that's just where the crime is. But when there is more crime brazenly happening in high visibility, touristy, no hotel neighborhoods, et cetera, that's when you know that they're just not afraid anymore. They just don't care anymore. They know they're not going to get punished. They know that there aren't any rules anymore. That's what has changed, and that's why this move by Trump is so welcome. Now, the gentleman who we just talked to, it was a really good point, because the three-headed solution, if it is one, to homelessness that the new Trump era and that Caroline Leavitt pointed out yesterday, for homeless people, you have a choice. Get off the street and go to a homeless shelter, get off the street and go get some mental health or drug treatment, or you go to jail. The gentleman's point, and it's a really good one, is there's only so much space in any of those 3 options. There are only so many jails. There's only so much mental health treatment space. there's only so much drug treatment space, and there is really only so much homeless shelter space. So here's the thing that I identified as tough for conservatives to hear. I think we found something where we need to spend more money. I think we found something that we have not spent enough money on. And that is not a sentence that usually comes together in my head. But if we really are going to remove these people from the streets, you got to put them somewhere. And I think my favorite idea, and this is the one that makes everybody, they have 14 heart attacks and 6 nervous breakdowns. What? Take them out of town? Just relocate them against their will? Yes. Yes. I mean, because listen, nobody's going to be thrilled. They'd like to stay in the tent, right there at a street corner at a building you're trying to get into. They'd like to stay there. That's illegal. I love when people say homelessness is not illegal. Technically true. However, living on a sidewalk is. And so that involves relocation. We're going to move you. And it'll be the best thing that ever happened to you, because it should be on a big plot of land out in the burbs somewhere. That'll be some interesting city council meetings, I'm sure. And we create a facility that is clean and well run, where people can be really cared for. And that is going to take some money. That is absolutely going to take some money. So on the Ukraine Russia situation, let me take a quick peek at that, and then we'll be back out for a final segment of your calls and your thoughts to wrap up this hour. There is going to be, no matter what happens, there is going to be pressure on Trump to do something. He's going to have to, Zelensky's going to have to give, and Putin's going to have to give. So when we come back, I'll take a look at what both sides want, the kind of landscape Trump might have to navigate up there in the Alaskan landscape. And we'll take more of your calls too. 1-800-520-1234. You just have to smile. You just have to smile. These guys make you smile. Part of a childhood memory for me. But I'll tell you what, so why am I dragging some Kiss onto the Hugh Hewitt show? Well, I'll tell you, they are up for a Kennedy Center Honors. The ceremony will be December 8th. Trump will apparently, is he going to MC it or host it? Whatever that's called. And the other, let me get the list here. Paul Stanley and the boys. Have Kiss and George Strait ever been in the same building? They're going to be on December 8th, and it's going to be the Kennedy Center, because George Strait also so deservedly on that list. And we got some George coming your way. Also some Gloria Gaynor for I Will Survive. Also Michael Crawford of Phantom of the Opera fame, and Sylvester Stallone. There are your Kennedy Center honorees. Trump had a very interesting time holding court about all of that today, and about a lot of other things too. Some of those excerpts are coming. Okay, in the couple of minutes we have left, let me take care of what Russia wants, what Ukraine wants, when Trump goes up there and tries to solve it all. That should be easy, in Alaska. And then we're going to hit the top of the hour and then come back and just dive right back into your calls. Then we have other great guests going on. Selena Zito joins us next hour. Sarah Bedford's going to be with us. We're going to have a great time. Glad to be here with you on the Hugh Hewitt Show. So Russia is going to demand that Ukraine cede Russian-occupied territory. He's going to say, listen, if I occupy it now, you got to give it to me. Sorry, I've turned him into Boris Badenoff from Rocky and Bullwinkle. What about Moose and Squirrel? Putin is going to demand that Ukraine never be in NATO. They have to abandon their NATO aspirations. He's going to demand that Ukraine demilitarize. That'll be fun. He is going to call for elections. Putin is going to tell Trump they have to have fresh elections in Ukraine. I guess Zelensky's not going to like that. Would he win? Ukraine is one of those countries where, how popular is he really? I would think in wartime your leaders tend to be popular unless the war is not going well. Is the war going well from the Ukrainian perspective? They haven't been overrun. So I'd say compared to expectations, that's going pretty well. So what is Ukraine going to want? They're going to want a durable ceasefire. And remember, peace is not what you get when everybody stops shooting. That's true in Gaza. Peace is what you get when things are settled and the right people have won, or there's been a compromise that works well. Ukraine is going to want security guarantees, again, whatever that means. Maybe peacekeeping forces, British, French, that's fine. It's a European problem. It is not, repeat, not an American problem. Zelensky's going to want Russia to pay for damages caused by the war. You think America's broke. Russia is broke. He will want the return of children and POWs. That should be fine. And Zelensky's going to want Trump to keep the sanctions on Russia. And that's not going to go over well. Trump has his work cut out for him. A good Wednesday afternoon, everybody. Mark Davis in for Hugh Hewitt, which I will also be tomorrow. You will be back next week. Working our way through a week filled with, I think the unifying thought here is anticipation. Lots of anticipation for how the summit will go in Alaska and what we want to have. It's funny. We want Trump to succeed, right? Franklin Graham had a wonderful post earlier today. Pray for our president that he is able to do something that results in peace and an end to this war. He also said, pray for President Putin that his heart will be open, that his mind will be open to accept sensible strategies that get us to the end of this war. Might as well complete the trifecta. We pray for President Zelensky that he too will be willing to accept some terms that are fair to him. What is the definition of fair to Ukraine and fair to Russia? I mentioned at the close of the last hour what these guys are going to want, and a lot of them seem sharply mutually exclusive. So as I said, Trump has his work cut out for him, and so do we. Taking a bunch of calls at 1-800-520-1234. I'm going to dive right back into those calls here in just a second because they're filled with opinions on what we want, what we think is right in the Alaska summit that's coming up in a few days. And also the other anticipation is I cannot wait to see what's going to happen with the crime numbers in Washington in the coming days and weeks. I guess you could say there are two reasons why I want the problem to get better. The first one, of course, is I care about people and I don't want people killed and carjacked. So that's like reason number one why I hope this whole deployment and federalization of National Guard and some federalization of the Metropolitan Police Department in D.C., I hope it works because I care about human beings. The secondary reason, and this is not small, is I would love for Trump to get another win. And again, even that is not just a partisan, yay for our side, conservative spiking of the ball. I hope that it's always good for America when good ideas win. There are some policies where we can either do this or do that, and I might want this and you might want that, and whatever. And if I win or you win, it's a wash. We'll see how it goes through life. But on things like borders, it's just better for a country to have borders. On things like crime, it's just better to have less of it. On things like the mutilation of children by a gender-crazed cult, that's objectively horrible. So we need to win those battles, not just to put up a check mark on the victories for our side, but so that really, truly good things can happen to people and bad things can be prevented. This is what a lot of this is about. 1-800-520-1234. Let us roll to Portland, Oregon. And Jim, Mark Davison for you. It's a pleasure to have you. Happy Wednesday, sir. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Mark. I heard Larry Elder yesterday and you today, and they're getting in the specifics on the Washington, D.C. crime statistics. I think we've kind of come to the point where we could outright say, look, we got to investigate. It looks like you're cooking the books, and put it that bluntly. And I suppose we could add a little ironical humor, and I'm most sure that the legacy media really wants to get to the bottom of this and find out the truth. I don't really mean that. But
their lack of curiosity will be deafening. I believe you're right about that, Jim.
But do you think we've gotten to the point where a sharp remark like that ought to be made? Rather than just the details.
Absolutely, and thank you. It's funny. You can fill your days with things where you learn that something bad has happened, and you just chalk it up and go, okay, that was bad. Let's not have that happen anymore. Things like a nearly brain dead president offered up as being fit for service for another 4 years. Well, thank God that didn't happen. He's not president, thank God, and neither is she, thank God. But you can't let stuff like that go. there have to be consequences for that level of fraud perpetrated on the American people. So let's go to another type of fraud. Cooking the books in our major cities. Does anybody doubt? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I magically know, like I know my own name, the degree to which the books have been cooked in Washington. It kind of looks like they have, or the degree to which that we may get phony numbers coming out of Chicago, coming out of Baltimore, coming out of Philadelphia, other big blue cities, because you know that it's just bad press. It's bad optics for crime to remain as bad as it's been. And I know that all those mayors are just dying to come out there and say, hey, crime is at a 30-year low, whether it is or whether it's not. We are in Sun City, Arizona. Janos, hi, Mark Davis in for you. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. I
Sure.
just would like to mention a few things about Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
In about 2000, year of 2000, there were about 35% fewer Russians living in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Also, back in 1945, the mighty Red Army, the victorious army, added many parts into Ukraine, like the eastern part of Poland.
Absolutely.
Then also the north portion of Bessarabia and the north portion of Bukovina added into Ukraine on the
Okay.
south.
I am enjoying the geography.
well-
Sorry, need to listen to me. I'm enjoying the geography and the history. What I need for you to do is bottom line it and tell me, in view of these thoughts in your head, what do you want to have happen this weekend and moving forward?
Well, first of all, Ukraine is horrible to their minorities. They have many minorities in there.
Didn't really answer the question, but hey, love you, appreciate it. 1-800-520-1234. And we are in Chicago. Bruno, hey, Mark Davis in for you. How you doing, sir?
Great, Mark. You're doing an excellent job, buddy. I
Thank you.
love listening to you.
You're very kind.
They ought to just tell us the actual numbers in Chicago, L.A., Washington. None of this percent decrease. That's a bunch of BS. How many murders, number-wise, assaults, carjacks, etc. Tell us the number. FBI, I think, in my opinion, needs to get involved big time as far as collecting the data and publishing the data for these democratic cities. I don't know what do you think?
I think that is extremely wise. Accountability, reliability. There are things we have to be able to trust. There are things that we have to be able to say, okay, these are people telling us things. They're supposed to be straight with us, whether the news is good or whether the news is bad. And we need to be able to rely on their credibility. Sadly, you could say we're not there yet. Let's go to Los Angeles. Don, Mark Davis in for you. Welcome. How you doing?
Oh, great, Mark. Great job filling in. I'm here in
Thank
the belly of the beast in L.A.
Appreciate it.
On this Ukrainian business just makes my blood boil, because Mr. Trump is trying to make it sound like it's Zelensky's fault that Putin invaded him. It's not. This is as clear-cut as when Hitler was on the move in Europe, and he took the Rhineland, the Sudetenland, Danzig and the Polish corridor, et cetera, and the West, the original America Firsters, appeased him and said, "Well, gee, he's not so bad."
Yeah,
and the same.
but Don, I got to tell you, this historical echo fails on several points. If you think people are beating up on Zelensky a little too much, okay, but the notion that that Putin is an absolute Hitler starter kit, Hitler 2.0, and it's exactly like what was going on in the late 1930s is just not an informed historical observation to make. It's just not. I'm sorry.
Well, you're just in denial. You just don't want to admit it.
One is not in denial. One is not in denial by disagreeing with you, my friend. Is Russia the bad guys? Absolutely. Did Putin start this? Absolutely. Has Zelensky at times been over-criticized? Sure, I'll go there as well. But this whole notion that it is clear cut and that this is as simple as the evils of Hitler, that's born of some other motivation than accuracy in 2025. Alrighty, Mark Davis in for you. Stick around. Much more to come right here on
Hold it
Salem
right
Radio
there.
Network
I'm
and
back
Salem
from
News Channel.
Vacation, not really. I pre-recorded this on Friday. It's my Relief Factor segment because I take Relief Factor with me on vacation, just like I take it every day on this program. And we're going to remind you every hour, even when I'm out on vacation, that Relief Factor does indeed work. If you take it every single day, you will feel much better because it works with your body's anti-inflammatory system to reduce the minor aches and pains that come with exercise and aging. You should be doing the former. You're definitely doing the latter. Every day, Relief Factor means more and more to a comfortable life. Stop using the over-counter meds. Try it the old-fashioned way. Icarian curcumin, resveratrol, and omega. And the starter pack, $19.95, gets you 3 weeks of Relief Factor. You take 3 on the first day, every day for the first week, 2 on the second week, every day on the second week, and then 1 on the third week, and then forever after. 1-800, the number 4 in the word relief, 1-800, the number 4 in the word relief, or visit their website, relieffactor.com. Find that starter pack for $19.95, less than $1 a day at relieffactor.com.
On the list of musical birthdays, there's a little rock royalty happening here for the 90s kids. This is Tal Bachman and She's So High. Remember that record from 30-some years ago? Know who his dad is? That would be Randy Bachman of Bachman-Turner Overdrive fame. And a little band called the Guess Who. So there you go, little family lineage. So hey, I could fill my days listing ways in which Gavin Newsom is wrong about things, from gender to borders to, well, pretty well everything else. But in preparing to fill in for Hugh Hewitt, one of the things I enjoy doing most is reading and running across pieces that make me go, let's see if we can get this writer on this occasion. Jack Fowler, contributing editor at National Review, has written a wonderful piece, and the headline is Gavin Newsom, Climate Warrior, Flinches as California's War Against Oil Produces a Crisis. Jack, welcome. It's wonderful to have you.
Mark, it's great to be here. Great to talk to you, and I'm honored to be on the Hugh Hewitt show. Love you. It's just one of the great men in America today. Yeah.
You're very, very kind. Thank you. So what we have here is one of those things that's almost a law of physics or math. It's a near certainty that if you savage and brutalize an industry, it doesn't want to be in your state anymore. So the fossil fuels industry has grown a little dark on California. But rather than saying, bye, Felicia, Gavin Newsom finds himself over a barrel. Not my joke. Let me have you describe it. That's kind of the premise. It's like he's now having to beg them to stay in his energy-rich state.
Right. Well, why is that? Well, oil comes from refineries. By the way, I'm no oil expert, but I've written a lot over the years of big oil hate. And there is no one person other than Gretchen, whatever her Thunberg in Sweden, who comes across hating and managing hatred of big oil than Gavin Newsom. So in California, with the Democrat supermajority legislature and a crazy progressive left bureaucracy, they're trying to end gasoline powered cars. We know by, I think it's 2035 in the state, all cars are supposed to be electric EVs. Well, guess what? There's still millions of cars that need gasoline to get around. There's still people that need gasoline for their electric lawnmowers and their chainsaws, other things. But the refineries have been profit capped. So you're right, Mark. Why do business in a place where we are not going to be able to make any money? It's not worth the time. It's not worth the effort. We're going to shut down. Well, even Gavin Newsom knows that if that happens, and when that happens, California's already insanely high gas prices are going to go drastically higher. There were 2 refineries that Phillips 66 and gosh, I forget the name of the other one in the article. I'm getting old, Mark. But if they shut down, that will cut output of gasoline for cars and other uses by 20%, which means the prices are going to spike. And as we all know, these prices are already drastically high. And the legislature passed some new taxes within the last year that I think being rolled in over a few years, those taxes alone were going to add another 65 cents a gallon that people have to pay. So, would it be surprising in a few years that Californians are going to pay $10 a gallon for gas? No question. Gavin doesn't care. He's in his gated community, but the guy that needs to get from work, point A to point B, needs to drive 50 miles to get to that job, he's going to be crucified.
Can I count on the court system, fingers crossed tightly, in California to bring some sanity to a case you describe in your article, People of the State of California versus ExxonMobil et al.? It's a sweeping lawsuit filed a couple of years ago, the Newsom administration accusing these oil companies of deceiving the public about climate change, which is also known as disagreeing with him and his belief that fossil fuels are destroying the planet, something for which the evidence is, and I'm being gracious here, sketchy. It's like a court having to determine whether climate extremism is sensible, and to have a company's pocketbook dependent on their wisdom, it's a little scary.
Well, as the article states, there is big lawfare going on in many sectors in American society by leftist law concerns. And of course, while Gavin Newsom is flinching, by the way, back on this story, like, wait a minute, let's not close these refineries so soon. The state and the state attorney general's office is proceeding with lawfare against big oil, as you point out in this case. By the way, it's happening in many other places. But in many other places, even local district courts, they say, no, there's no there. It helps to have a company fight back. One of the other big oil-based companies in California was Chevron. And Chevron there was an attempt to blackmail Chevron about 10 plus years ago by a guy named Steven Donziger. It was a case out of Ecuador. The Ecuadorian courts charged in favor of locals, of the left, and against Chevron for billions of dollars, but Chevron fought back. Many people, we've experienced this with conservatives so many times in America, where corporations are, there's a shakedown and they pay off just to go away. We see this in all kinds of ways. But Black Lives Matters, how many billions of dollars did that organization shake down American corporations for in recent years? Anyway, Chevron fought back and won, and actually in federal court. It's a couple of great books about this case called The Crime of the Century. There's no there. We have to know, though, the left will use, as we do know this, they use dirty tactics. They pay off the judges, they concoct evidence, but when they're caught and it's brought before courts of law, we have prevailed. So there's evidence there to be hopeful, to not despair, that maybe the courts are a place where this idiocy, it's more than idiocy, it's evil against oil. Now, I'm not, I don't bathe in it, Mark. I don't, I don't own stock in oil companies, but where there is oil, there is energy and there is a decrease in poverty. Where you don't have the energy, you have poverty. So this is a real twisted aspect to this. There's a real hatred of people that we find in progressives and the left. And it manifests itself here. Let's not let these middle class boobs be able to drive their cars. And it's the same. It manifests itself in many other ways. In California, again, water. Let's not give them water. Too bad. Let's cut off the water so they don't. They're not able to grow crops in the Central Valley. There's quite a demented aspect to the left.
And one would think there would be consequences for it. I knew this would work off well. Jack Fowler, thank you so much, contributing editor, National Review. Check out his piece, again, titled, Gavin Newsom, Climate Warrior, Flinches as California's War Against Oil Produces a Crisis. It is there at National Review online. Alrighty, we're about to hit the bottom of the hour break, so let's come back, take another call or two. Maybe we'll dive into the greatness of Trump and his Kennedy Center news conference, which was about the Kennedy Center honorees, and much more to come. If you're listening to the Hugh Hewitt Show and you get Don Ho doing Tiny Bubbles from 1967, and in there somewhere Kiss doing Rock and Roll All Night, it must mean I'm here. That's the eclectic nature of the Mark Davis fill-in guy bumper library, and it is tied in this particular case to the birthday of the great Don Ho. That was a big hit in 1967, kids. Don Ho, Passed away like '07. He was 76, and I hope he invested well on that. So, hey, invest in this. I've got some things I want to mention to you, and some things to play for you from Trump at the at this magnificent Kennedy Center presser. Oh, it was absolutely tremendous. It was something to behold. This is something to behold if you're thinking about your investments. There are a lot of good reasons to buy gold and silver. So many other investment avenues are really volatile, but AmFed Coin and Bullion. I've heard Hugh talk about them. They should be your choice for precious metals. If you ask AmFed owner Nick Grovich, hey, Nick, could you simplify the case for precious metals? Here's what he'll tell you. When President Roosevelt recalled the gold in circulation and paid people with paper money, they got a $20 bill for a $20 gold piece. Today, the $20 bill gets you a part of a tank of gas. The gold piece, $3,400 or so dollars. Which would you rather own? AmFed Coin and Bullion is there for you. Nick's been in the industry about 42 years, proud of providing transparency and fair pricing to build trusted relationships. So if you are interested in buying or selling, call Nick and his team at AmFed Coin and Bullion, 1-800-221-7694, 1-800-221-7694, or AmericanFederal.com, AmericanFederal.com. Okay, so Kennedy Center, an incredible setting where Trump talked a lot about the people being brought in who will be honored at the ceremony, which I believe will be December 8th. Sylvester Stallone, George Strait, and Kiss. I'm so there. At the very, very beginning, this is cut one. Donald Trump at the Kennedy Center just beginning to hold court.
1978, the Kennedy Center honors have been among the most prestigious awards in the performing arts. I wanted one. I was never able to get one. This year, it's true, actually. I would have taken it if they would have called me. I waited and waited and waited, and I said, the hell with it. I'll become chairman. And I'll give myself an honor. Maybe I'm going to honor, next year we'll honor Trump, okay?
Well, I don't know if he'll be wearing the multicolored thing as an actual honoree, but again, this is cut number 2. He is, however, going to host it.
I've been asked to host. I said, I'm the president of the United States. Are you fools asking me to do that? Sir, you'll get much higher ratings. I said, I don't care. I'm president of the United States. I won't do it. They said, please. And then Susie Wells said to me, sir, I'd like you to host. I said, okay, Susie, I'll do it. That's the power she's got. But I just, so I have agreed to host. Do you believe what I have to do? And I didn't want to do it, okay? They're going to say, he insisted. I did not insist. But I think it will be quite successful, actually. It's been a long time. I used to host the Apprentice finales, and we did rather well with that. So I think we're going to do very well because we have some great honorees, some really great ones.
So let's take a look at 2 of them. I don't know what this says about me, but probably you. Here are 2 acts that are very different, both been a part of my life for decades. Let's go to cut 4, right here in my state of Texas. This one warms my heart. Trump says we're bringing in George Strait.
First is country music star, actor, and producer George Strait. Great. Over an extraordinary 4-decade career, George has sold more than 120 million records worldwide, amassed 60 #1 hits, wow, and produced 33 platinum certified albums, more than any other living American. That is amazing. He's believed by millions of people to just be as good as you can get, and he's beloved by hundreds of millions of people all over the world. He's really something, and they call him the king of country, and we know him very well, George Strait.
And finally, cut number 6, I did not have on my bingo card today that hosting the Hugh Hewitt show, I would be able to have Donald Trump talking about Kiss.
And finally, we'll be honoring one of the greatest rock bands of all time, Kiss. So Kiss was formed in 1973 in New York City by founding band members and incredible people, by the way. Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons, Ace Frehley, and Peter Criss. Kiss became a global phenomenon, sold more than 100 million records worldwide, and produced 30 gold albums and lots of.
I'll go ahead and grab it back. My day is made. Just the way you said, you just paused in the script there. Kiss. Let's rock and roll all night and party hugely every day. Love me some Outlaws. Love that band, always did. 1975, I'm graduating from high school and stuff. And there's the Outlaws, and there goes another love song. Huey Thomason on the guitar and vocal right there. He would have been 73 today, passed away back in 07. Man, that's a... You know we have 3 birthdays today of people who all died in 2007. Dan Fogelberg, Don Ho, and Huey Thomason of the Outlaws. Coincidence? That's what the Germans want you to believe. All righty, Mark Davis in for Hugh Hewitt, old Norm Macdonald line. Let us hop to some calls, some more of Trump holding court at the Kennedy Center, talking about not just the inductees, but also things like D.C. statehood, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let us roll to, let's go right down the road, Plano, Texas. Scott, Mark Davis in for Hugh. How are you doing, sir? Welcome.
I'm good, thank you. I have a question. I've wanted to ask John Lott this for a long time. I sent him an email some years ago, and I don't think he even responded. But I wanted to know if he's ever compiled statistics, or if anybody, like even the FBI, has compiled statistics to see who's more prone or commits more gun violence, gun crimes. Is it Republican people or Democrat registered people? I'd like to know, because I think it would be very telling. That's why we don't hear it.
All right, I'll play. If you take everybody who commits a gun crime and examine their voting records, they might be poorer. They might skew more minority. They might, I don't know. So, okay, even if we stipulate that maybe of all the gun crimes committed, they are committed more by people who might tend to vote Democrat, what would you make of that? What conclusion would you, why ask?
Because if you're going to make, outlaw guns, you want the place to be safer, outlaw them in the hands of Democrats.
Well, I mean, I want a law-abiding Democrat to be able to have a gun as much as I have mine. I'm not going to abridge anybody's access to guns with a voting test. The two things that listen, I am Mr. Second Amendment. I want everybody to have a gun that wants one. Only 2 things should stand in the way: a criminal history and a serious mental health history. Are you with me on that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay. So by and large, generally, I think those are the only things that should stand in the way. And it's funny. There are a lot of Democrats who are gun owners, and I know a lot of them. They tend to be maybe a smidge less crazy. I think Harold Ford Jr. on the 5. I think he's packing a rod somewhere back in Memphis, because it puts you in the mind of at least one part of the Constitution. And if your gun ownership means something to you, and you happen to have voted for Biden, and happen to have voted for Kamala, and happen to have voted for Clinton or something, if you're old enough, maybe there's something in there that says, it is that Second Amendment in that Bill of Rights that enables me to have this gun that I value. And maybe the Constitution being savaged in so many ways by the people that I tend to vote for, maybe that's something I need to think twice about. All right, here's something that you don't need to think even once about. You know what? It's funny. Always think about something once. And as my buddy Dennis Prager often has said, think a second time. He wrote a book about that. This is, which cut is this? Is cut 9 of Trump at the Kennedy Center presser after he finished telling us all the people that were going to be doing Kennedy Center honors December 8th. Somebody asked him about the preposterousness of D.C. statehood.
Statehood is ridiculous. We want to straighten the place out. Statehood's ridiculous. It's unacceptable. It's the Democrats want it because the Democrats have, about 95% in this little area. Even I didn't get it very much. They want that. They want to pick up 2 senators, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And that's the least of the reasons why, by the way. But that's one of the reasons why. What we want to do is make Washington, D.C., the greatest, most beautiful, safest capital anywhere in the world, and that's going to happen.
It's funny. Here's something that I hope is a test of my sincerity on this. DC statehood's a terrible idea. It's historically terrible. It is foundationally terrible. Our founding fathers envisioned a city that's why they carved it out of the swampland of Maryland. It's going to be its own enclave. It's going to be its own city. It's not going to be in a state, and it's not going to be a state. Now, President Trump said the reason there's a heavy push for this from the left is not to give these poor people representation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's because they know full well that you would have a Democrat House member and two Democrat senators. That's why they want it. Well, if you were to tell me tomorrow, if the voting patterns of D.C. were to invert, and by the way, Trump is right. I don't think I got very much. He got like 8%. It was like 90 to 10, roughly, with a couple of other stragglers thrown in. That's the level of voting in D.C. That's the level of how deep blue D.C. is. If that were not the case, if it were a guaranteed 2 Republican senators, I'd still say the same thing. Because the founding fathers never envisioned Washington, D.C. as a state or as a part of any state. It is an inherently bad idea. Oh, President Trump talking about what I was talking about a few minutes ago, about crazy Democrats and non-crazy Democrats and which ones are running the show now. Cut 10. You'll enjoy.
Do you plan to meet with Leader Schumer and Leader Jeffries to discuss that situation?
Well, I will, I guess, but it's almost a waste of time to meet because they never approve anything. If we want money to fight crime, if we want money to do only good things, just good things. Let's not even talk about controversial. They don't want to meet about anything. They really are. They're stuck. They don't know what to do. They have probably more, I would say more than half are sane, but they are led by insane people.
What a wonderful sentence that is. More than half of the Democrat Party, more than half are sane. Is that being overly gracious? 50.00001%? I don't know. I think that's fair. I would say it may well be. I'll even see him and raise him. Maybe 65% of Democrats are sane. Sane, literally, clinically sane. Exactly. I may be way too kind. The point being, that's just disagreeing with me doesn't make you crazy. Being AOC, being Bernie Sanders, being Chuck Schumer, being Mamdani, that makes you crazy. And that's who's leading the party right now. Hang the mirror ball and hit the dance floor. It's Gloria Gaynor, 1978, I Will Survive. We are closing each hour for the last bumper tune coming into the last segment with someone who's going to get a Kennedy Center honor from Donald Trump on the 8th of December.
Anti-survival?
Yes, they're anti-survival. They're anti-disco. They're anti-country. They're anti-rock and roll. They're anti-face paint. Because Kiss, George Strait, Gloria Gaynor, and Sylvester Stallone. And boy, here's the tough one. They're also anti-Broadway. Because Michael Crawford of Phantom of the Opera fame, also up for the Kennedy Center Award from Trump, which of course makes the entire thing an evil exercise. But hey, here's a very worthwhile exercise. You've heard Hugh talk about identity theft. Stressful, time-consuming, massive challenge to fix. This is why you can't take online protection lightly anymore. Your go-to cybersecurity solution needs to be WebRoot. WebRoot. And right now you can get 50% off WebRoot Total Protection or WebRoot Essentials when you go to webroot.com/Hewitt. You know, just about every 2 seconds, there's somebody's identity stolen in the U.S. It also takes an average of 100, maybe 200 hours to resolve identity theft on your own. With WebRoot, you can protect your identity on up to 5 devices or cover the whole family with up to 10 identities and 10 devices. You'll get real-time antivirus protection against malware, ransomware, phishing scams. You get a firewall, network monitor, a web threat shield to block bad websites before you even click. WebRoot also gives you a password manager, a system optimizer, identity protection with advanced dark web monitoring, rapid credit alerts, up to $1 million in reimbursement for stolen funds, protection up to $1 million. WebRoot includes a VPN for up to 10 devices, unlimited cloud backup, and restore for your PC, your Mac. It's WebRoot essentials that will never interrupt your daily life. They install over 6 times quicker than the competitors. So don't wait. Let's go. Get 50% off WebRoot Total Protection or WebRoot Essentials today at webroot.com/Hewitt, webroot.com/Hewitt. Live a better digital life with WebRoot. All right, well, we're living a large life here in the Hugh Hewitt Show broadcast. I'm Mark Davis, here with you today for one more hour, and here with you also one more day, and that will be tomorrow. Now, in our final hour, we're going to talk to Sarah Bedford, who's always great to talk to, and Selena Zito. Selena is fresh back from the Pennsylvania plant explosion, and she's got a lot to say on that and a lot of things going on in the news that she's been writing about. So Selena's always great to hear, and I get to talk to her. What a bonus for doing the Wednesday Hugh Hewitt Show. I'm Mark Davis here on the Salem Radio Network and the Salem News Channel. Thank you for watching or listening either way. So as we take a look at things going on as time passes, let me tell you what. Let me tell you about we are unburdened by what has come before, but we remember it well in terms of calls and topics and big stories that we've covered. The two big dominant things seem to be crime. And it's funny. I mentioned this on my local show here with 660 AM The Answer here in Dallas, Fort Worth. I said, guys, if a month ago I'd have said, hey, let's talk about crime, or hey, let's talk about homelessness, it would have worked. I've got some thoughtful things to say about it. Y'all have some thoughtful things to say about it. But there are things that would have, and have over the years, suppressed crime and homelessness as talk show topics. One is like, is there anything hot breaking news that changes the landscape of crime? Is there any big development that changes the way we look at homelessness? And usually that answer is no. But now the answer on both of those landscapes is yes. Because, first of all, Trump attracts laser focus to everything. And in focusing on crime in Washington, D.C., he has sparked this entire debate over, and I love this, there is debate over whether more law enforcement helps fight crime. This now starts an argument. You ever heard the Overton window? It's a philosophical concept that things within the Overton window are reasonable, things outside it are not. Like two dudes getting married. 50 years ago, way outside the Overton window. It still is for many, I understand. But now, not exactly the shock value. Dudes get married all the time. And I know that's a talk show topic, but I just mean the things that either used to never even be discussed and never even... Okay, here's one. Carving up children for, gender mutilation. There are some people who are trying to shoehorn that into the Overton window. They are failing, and that is fantastic news. Things that we never used to argue about before, like, is patriotism good? Does a country need borders? Is it possible for a boy to become a girl? That's a hard no, Now it starts an argument over, again, not as much lately. I had a feeling that all of this stuff, a couple of government departments have sent out memos, federal government departments here in the Trump administration, that have said, any of you staffers who have pronouns in your bios, get rid of that nonsense. Thank you very much. It is a return to sanity. So on crime, here's just de facto evidence of the insanity that we're experiencing now. It starts an argument to ask whether more police are a good idea. Will this reduce crime? Of course it will. That's Earth logic. That's any human with a brainstem knows this. So from where, and as I launched into this brief rant, you can join us at 1-800-520-1234, 1-800-520-1234. Sarah Bedford's going to join us soon, and Selena Zito in the very next segment. So get in quick. We'll talk to you first, and then thereafter if you need to. So we've talked about that. And we've talked a great deal about Ukraine and about what we're looking for in these continuing days leading up to the Alaska summit, where President Trump will meet with Putin for sure, with Zelensky maybe, and then Putin and Zelensky maybe, and Trump may or may not be in the room. So there are all kinds of combinations and permutations that may happen there. So as we take a look at that, let's take a look at this, because one of the things that's happening as the Democrat Party paints itself into this crazy corner, this is cut 19 on our list. So first of all, it's Chris Matthews. Second of all, it's Morning Joe. And even in that cesspool of political hostility, they are able to recognize when the basic truth of something is about to bite their party in the butt.
So politically, I think this strengthens his red power in the rural parts of Pennsylvania and Scranton and Bethlehem and Allentown. Those people are going to look at this headline and say, it's about time somebody's doing something about D.C. and Philly with Krasner as our DA. You need a tougher DA. You just do to put people in jail. But the crime is inevitably committed by working people. And in D.C., working people are black, African American. They're the ones getting hit by crime, not the suburbanites and not the tourists and not the people that just look at the city. Trump looks at the city visually like a real estate agent. He wants to beautify the city like he's doing at the White House with that ridiculous ballroom he's putting in and getting rid of the Rose Garden. That's Trump work. But I think it shows strength. I agree with you. I think this is a strength move against the big cities who are in a difficult situation on crime. And the murder rate, you can't keep saying violent crime is down, but the murder rate's up. To the average person, the murder rate's about life and death. You don't brag about a rising murder rate. And the Democrats are, I agree with you, Mika, they're falling into the trap of defending what's indefensible.
Sometimes things are so obvious that even Chris Matthews gets it right. Sometimes, and this is my entry ramp to cut 18, because in the show that bears his name, we should let Joe talk. Sometimes things are so obvious that even Joe Scarborough achieves a fleeting moment of clarity.
This is a fascinating story because so many people have been calling me over the past couple of days going, you know, Washington should have gotten involved years ago. This place is dangerous. It's a mess. It's a wreck and whatever. And then they'll go on Twitter, this is the worst outrage of all time, the shocking, which I understand. It's like people need to express their concerns about Donald Trump going too far.
Okay, fine. If people want to express their concerns about Donald Trump going too far, pick something where he's going too far. And there'll be agreement and disagreement about that. But if you are free advice from a conservative host on a conservative network for liberals everywhere, if indeed you're going to come after Trump, say that he's lowering taxes too much. I'll disagree with you. Say that he's a little too heavy-handed in getting rid of illegal immigrants. I'll disagree with you, but those are things that we say that he's way too fond of protecting the unborn. Boy, will I disagree with you on that. But those are things that left and right have been arguing about forever, and will argue about them, and will continue to argue about them forever. If you are on the left, it's just not working out well for you to take a look at this. You've heard a lot about the 80-20 issues. Gender sanity is an 80-20 issue. Borders, I think, were an 80-20 issue. This one might be 90-10. Kind of like the margin by which Trump lost in the presidential election in D.C. because it's D.C. But and I'm being a little bit hyperbolic here, and I don't think this is, well, it ain't 90-10. If it's not 90-10 in Washington, it might be close to it in America, broadly defined, where, again, absolutely anyone with the brainstem that I mentioned before knows that if you have a big crime problem, that a flood of fresh police forces will help with that. Absolutely everyone knows that. So why Chris Van Hollen and various other people on MSNBC and other networks saying this is terrible, it's a step toward dictatorship, it's authoritarian? It is because they know and they fear that it is going to work, and chalk up yet another thing on which he is right and they have been so painfully wrong. painfully to them anyway. All right, let's have a chat with Selena Zito next. Oh, I always love driving around listening to her. Can't wait to talk to her. Mark Davis in for Hugh Hewitt. Stay here.
Hold it right there. I'm back from vacation. Not really. I pre-recorded this on Friday. It's my Relief Factor segment because I take Relief Factor with me on vacation just like I take it every day on this program. And we're going to remind you every hour, even when I'm out on vacation, that Relief Factor does indeed work. If you take it every single day, you will feel much better because it works with your body's anti-inflammatory system to reduce the minor aches and pains that come with exercise and aging. You should be doing the former. You're definitely doing the latter. Every day, Relief Factor means more and more to a comfortable life. Stop using the over-counter meds. Try it the old-fashioned way. Icarian curcumin with Veratron Omega. And the starter pack, $19.95, gets you 3 weeks of Relief Factor. You take 3 on the first day, every day for the first week, 2 on the second week, every day on the second week, and then 1 on the third week, and then forever after. 1-800, the number 4 in the word relief, 1-800, the number 4 in the word relief, or visit their website, relieffactor.com. Find that starter pack for $19.95, less than $1 a day at relieffactor.com.
Not a bad little album released 60 years ago this week. That is the Help album from those boys from Liverpool. And I know it could have gone to something you hear a million times, but this is It's Only Love. Little John vocal there. It is Selena Zito's love for Western Pennsylvania that you might have caught wind of here on the Hugh Hewitt Show. It is in the pages of Butler, which of course contain one of the life-changing, history-changing moments. She's chronicled it so well there. And there's a lot, so much that's discussed about Yinzerland. And Selena is with us now on the occasion of her visit to Clairton, which I believe is about 15 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. Selena, welcome. You've gone to visit the site of this coke plant explosion. 2 dead. What's the latest, and what are we to glean from this tragedy, and what was your journey like today? So glad to see you.
Thank you. So I've been covering the steel industry all of my career, and this was, in my younger days, it was not uncommon that there were casualties and very bad injuries in steel plants, but that has dramatically changed in the past 40 years. Safety measures and regulations have really made these plants much more safer for the workers. Still, every time you walk into a plant as a steel worker, you may as well be a fireman, go into a fire every day. The plants are hot, they're filled with chemicals and dust and fumes and heat, and you always have to be constantly on guard. This is very tragic for the U.S. Steel family. The steel workers, there's 3 plants. There's Edgar Thomson, Urban Works, and the Clairton Coke Works. They're all within a 10-mile radius of each other along the Monongahela Valley. And so this is like family, right? These plants are like family, but also the communities that surround him. So this has been a very tough few days.
I know it's kind of funny. I started my radio career in West Virginia, so I kind of know what coke is. It's high carbon. You heat coal in the absence of air, and that's why you get coal and coke often spoken of in the same sort of fossil fuels paragraph. And it is, and just like the United Mine Workers that I was hanging with in Charleston, West Virginia, the steel workers, this is a fraternity and sometimes sorority. It's a family, let's just call it, of people doing some of the hottest, dirtiest, most unpleasant work so that our lights can stay on. And I just got to tell you, I don't think that we think about them enough, and I don't think we pay them enough attention. I want to pay attention to this gentleman named Timothy Quinn, a 39-year-old father of 3, second-generation steelworker, one of the lives lost. We should thank God every day that there are people like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, these men and women, they believe their jobs are very patriotic. That what they do not only make our lives better and easier and more convenient, but they also are the men and women who keep our country secure. When that bomb dropped in Iran to get rid of their nuclear capabilities, that was made with U.S. steel. That was made with steel made in America, right? So they have this belief system that they are part of something bigger than self, and they go every day into those plants much like a fireman goes into a fire. You know there is high risk, but you do it for the betterment. Obviously for your livelihood, but also what you're doing is for the betterment of the country.
So as you travel those roads, carry the best wishes of a nation and gratitude for what is often a sacrifice for doing this vital, vital work. All right, let's talk about the vital work you do, writing about stuff in the news. How have the last few days struck you as Trump says, hey, let's fight crime, and some in America say, no, don't do that, that's terrible?
I don't know who the some are. Because if you look at many major American cities, while crime has statistically gone down since COVID, although that is debatable because of the way that crime is now reported to the FBI, homelessness and crime, even underreported crime, right? It happens. It doesn't make it onto the books, right? And so there is a sense of unease that people feel in major American cities, including my hometown of Pittsburgh. My hometown of Pittsburgh, which I have loved for 6 decades, is filled with homeless encampments and people walking around in some sort of meth days, and it's unsafe. You feel unsafe, and that's why there's a vacancy problem within the business community in the city. And I don't go to DC. I mean, ask anybody that said, hey, Selena, when I come to DC to do a book event, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. I don't feel safe there.
Understand. Is your governor, Josh Shapiro, often heralded as a semi-non-crazy Democrat alternative in 2028? Is he wise enough to sort of moisten his finger to the air of public opinion and see that maybe this is a good idea, maybe it's a good idea for Pittsburgh, it's certainly a good idea for Philadelphia, and that maybe standing astride everything Trump does and saying orange man bad might not be the way to be a Democrat? Is he that smart?
Yeah, he's a very talented political athlete. You cannot take that away from Shapiro. And Muriel Bowser has kind of handled this pretty well as well, considering her political alignments and the president's political alignments. And Shapiro and Trump have, sort of worked together. They worked together on the U.S. Steel deal when Shapiro's the governor's residency was firebombed. Trump picked up the phone and called him, and they both detailed to me a very robust and good and warm conversation just about the times that we live in, having both been come under attack in our home state.
Well, I tell you, I know that in traveling, we got 60 seconds left. What's your next column about? What's the next thing you're going to explore?
So I have a piece today from Clareton. It should be at the Examiner pretty quickly. And then I'll also have a piece with the CEO of U.S. Steel, David Barrett, that will be in the Washington Post. It's going to be, and Josh Shapiro, it's going to be a must read. Neither of those men have historically gotten along. And yet yesterday, they both showed up like grown-ups to the Clareton plant and put whatever misgivings they had about each other aside and did the right thing.
That, not everybody sucks. That is so great to hear. And Selena, thank you. And everybody, get your copies of Butler, which is just a magnificent chronicle of that event and the political significance of it. Selena Zito, check her out. Anything she writes of any length is always going to be great. Hey, speaking of people who write stuff that I rather enjoy, over at the Examiner, their chief of investigative writing is Sarah Bedford, and she's going to join us next. We'll see what she's investigating these days. I want to do a little investigation into your thoughts on some of the things we've talked about on today's show. Some of it Ukraine and Russia and the Trump summit coming up. Some of it crime and homelessness. Grab a line, 1-800-520-1234. We'll have room to put some people on the air before we're done. Little Rod Stewart here in the home stretch half hour, finishing things up. Stone cold sober again. The occasion for that is Atlantic Crossing, a seminal Rod Stewart mid-70s album actually released 50 years ago this week. Look at there. ancient music for our next guest, who I want to give some credit for, because before we even get to some serious work she's doing investigatively, because she is the investigations editor for the DC Examiner, this is just very few words and huge wisdom. You ready? Maybe elite journalists who have wrongly substituted their own views for how normals actually feel about the economy, the border, transgenderism, and Biden's age, maybe they should sit this one out on DC crime. That is the wit, the wisdom of Sarah Bedford. Sarah's here, and I'm always glad to be here when you're here. Hi, Sarah. How you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Great piece of work there, but now let's go to the really important deep dive work if this is, I know there's a lot going on, but we must carve out oxygen for this story to get some visibility. I'm glad you're here to do it. About an hour ago, the DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, said that there are newly declassified top secret emails from December 2016 complying with President Obama's order to create this manufactured January 2017 report about Russia. The pushback has always been, no, we don't really know Obama did that. That's all something you guys are making up. You're just trying to pin stuff on Obama. And you posted 1 hour ago that Obama's national security advisor, Mike Rogers, raised concerns that Clapper, Comey, and Brennan were not providing career analysts with sufficient access to underlying intelligence. And this narrative of an intentional shaping of a false storyline is something that grows by the day. So what is the latest as you see it, and where in the world do you think this goes?
Well, Gabbard released 2 emails today that are actually pretty damning, especially of Clapper, Brennan, and Comey. And Rogers is the one who sort of comes out looking cleanest in these documents. But basically, you have the NSA director under Obama raising concerns. Look, you guys are rushing this. My guys haven't even seen the underlying intelligence, and you're pressuring us to make a really consequential conclusion about Putin's intentions in meddling in the election and trying to help Trump win that we just haven't seen any evidence for. You're going to need to either slow this down or open up access to the underlying intelligence. And Clapper responds and says, we may have to compromise on our normal procedures, and those are Clapper's words, but this needs to be a team effort. So there was so much pressure coming from the most partisan of the leaders to reach a premeditated conclusion.
And let me just reiterate the words you just put properly in Clapper's mouth. He admitted that, hey, this is a team sport, his words, that required, quote, compromise on our normal modalities. Are we going to be able to get to clarity and show people what that means for him to say such a thing?
Well, we're already starting to see that. And I think here is one way that the mainstream, the corporate media, what have you, is obscuring what we're finding out. They concede that, some of the intelligence community procedures weren't necessarily followed. The intelligence community, they didn't check every box they were supposed to check. This is not about whether the intelligence community followed procedures. What we're now learning is that it looks like these intel officials didn't follow procedures because they intended to reach a false conclusion implicating Trump and Putin in some sort of conspiracy. And if they had followed procedures, then they would have gotten caught doing that by the career analysts and the less partisan people among them that we're now seeing that in real time were raising concerns about what was happening. And they were silenced by these intel leaders, Clapper, Brennan, and Comey, who had already decided they were going to invent a conclusion for which there was no evidence. And that is why they cut these corners. So the point here is not just that they cut these corners, but why did they do it?
Last thing, I don't pretend there's going to be curiosity on this from ABC, CBS, NBC, but sometimes things become so big that even they can't ignore it. Is this one of those things?
I think it really depends on whether we see a prosecution. They can ignore this as long as it's being seen as being driven by Trump political appointees. They can dismiss it. But if you do see prosecutions where evidence has to be laid out in court, you're going to see a lot more behind the curtain. And at that point, the media wouldn't be able to ignore it.
Sarah C. Bedford, that's the X handle. Always great, Sarah. Thank you very, very much for your time today. Appreciate it. Great work. This is, where is the level of amazement and outrage? Is this the kind of thing where you just go, oh, well, I guess that's life in the big town, when Obama was president? I ain't letting it go, and I don't think you should either. I'm going to throw something out for the 1990s kids from 1995. An album released this week, just 30 short years ago, one of my favorite bands, Southern Culture on the Skids. Little ditty called Fried Chicken and Gasoline. Enjoy. I am enjoying the opportunity to be with you on this Hugh Hewitt show, and let me throw you one more bit of messaging here before we hop onto the messaging brought to us by the world of calls, 1-800-520-1234. When I say ALEC, I don't want you to think of Baldwin. I want you to think of the acronym ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council. They have released their landmark state labor policy rankings, states that work. This report by the folks at ALEC ranks all 50 states by their commitment to worker freedom and economic mobility. I know you want the top 5. I'm going to give you the top 5 and the bottom 5. Sit tight. Read the op-ed on the report, from right-to-work protections and occupational licensing reforms to laws that defend various rights and promote transparency in public sector bargaining. The report identifies where lawmakers are clearing the path for upward mobility and where states continue to rely on coercive, bureaucratic systems that stifle opportunity. You want the top 5? Number 1, Arizona. Look at you. Number 2, Utah. 3, Georgia. 4, Arkansas. 5, Florida. Want to guess the bottom 5? Interesting. They're in the news for some reason. 50 is Alaska. Dead last. 49, Massachusetts. 48 Oregon, 47 New York, 46 Connecticut. Shocker. To learn more about what's happening in your state and others and watch federalism in action, sign up for ALEC's free weekly newsletter at ALEC, A-L-E-C, alec.org/Hugh. And don't forget to check out how your state ranks. Go to richstatespoorstates.com. That is richstatespoorstates.com. Let's go to a state rich in history, the Commonwealth of Virginia. Ed, Mark Davis in for you. Happy Wednesday. How are you today?
I'm very good at, Mr. Davis.
Good.
I just like to finish up a little bit of that ancient Ukrainian history. You don't
Sure.
have to go back that far. 2 U.S. presidents dirty dealt Ukraine already. FDR put them behind the Soviet Union's Gulag Wall for 50 years, and just recently, Mr. Obama gave away a third of their country. I don't see why Zelensky would ever sit down with any U.S. president and expect a good deal.
Well, maybe can I borrow you for 60 seconds? Because it's not a bad point. I mean, I can totally understand your sort of channeling Zelensky on his skepticism of dealing with America over the years. Is it possible that this is one of those ways in which, and Lord knows the list is long, that Trump is just different? I think through his varying posturing with regard to Putin and with regard to Zelensky, Trump has made it clear that he has an open mind, an open heart, and an open view toward reaching a real compromise that both of these guys can live with. I know it's a half court shot, but are you totally pessimistic? Is there a possibility of success in Alaska?
I don't think Mr. Trump understands that the only people on the planet that hate the Russians worse are the Chechens.
Well, I know. I mean, and the Middle East is filled with hatreds too. But he got the Abraham Accords done, and that's not like that's apple. That's not apples and apples necessarily. No. But I hope that there is. I hope there's cause for optimism there. But Ed, listen, it is your cynicism is not ill placed to be sure. Alrighty, you know what I want to do here? I just can't get me enough Judge Jeanine. This is Cut 17, and she was on Fox News with Bill Hemmer, Dana Perino, and Judge Jeanine. When you say, "Oh, crime's at a 30-year low in D.C.," she ain't having it.
Well, what it would do is it would make people accountable, number one, and we're also looking to lower the age of criminals. What's happening is, even if you shoot someone with a gun, you go to family court where the purpose is rehabilitation. You get to go to an ice cream social, and you get to go to yoga classes. That's nonsense, and that's not what we need in the nation's capital, and that's not why the president put me here. The president wants to make the Capitol safe and beautiful, and that's exactly what we're going to do. And the only way to do that is to change the laws that have protected young children who are committing adult crimes. And all of these statutes that they've passed don't allow me to incarcerate. They allow the removal or the erasure of convictions. How fair is that to a parent who wants to find out whether or not a nanny is someone who's been convicted of a prior assault? How fair is that to an employer who doesn't get to understand or know who he's hiring? Everything about the D.C. Council and the laws that they've passed are liberal, they're defense-leaning, and they're not in favor of the citizens of D.C. And that's what President Trump is fighting, and that's what we're going to change. We're going to change the laws. We're going to lower the age of criminal responsibility. We've seen too much of it. We've seen homicides against young people. We've seen assaults in areas where just a couple days ago a kid gets a fractured nose and gets a severe concussion by 12 and 13-year-olds trying to steal a car. Why? Because they've been allowed to do it. Not anymore. If we have our way, we will be able to make D.C. safe again. And the president's going to do it. And we've got this. Last night, there were 700 federal and local cops on the streets. And this is what the community wants. They want to be able to be safe. They want to come to the nation's capital and look at the fabulous museums and the monuments that we have here. And last night, there were 43 arrests, and we seized 7 handguns. And every night it's something else. But this is a message that we're not going to tolerate crime as if that's just the way things go. And I'm tired of hearing that crime is down. It's not down for people who are suffering from violent crime.
How I love that woman, the greatness of Judge Jeanine. Well, let's tie a bow around all the things we've done today and get on out of here and leave you to your day next. Mark Davison for Hugh Hewitt. Stick around.
Hi, it's Hugh Hewitt for AndrewandTodd.com. They are a sponsor from Sierra Pacific Mortgage. 888-888-1172. 888-888-1172. On the Friday that I left for vacation, Andrew sent me a note that interest rates are the lowest that they have been all summer. So just as you have to finally make a decision on a house, interest rates are working in your favor. Call Andrew Del Rey or Todd Avakian or Sierra Pacific Mortgage at 888-888-1172 and find out what works best for you. Whether you're a veteran, you don't want to put any money down. Whether you're a senior citizen and you want to get a reverse mortgage. Whether you're a first-time buyer and you want to use FHA, or you just want to buy a vacation house or a second home or an investment property. AndrewandTodd.com, 888-888-1172.
If Kiss is getting a Kennedy Center honor, you got to play Rock and Roll All Night. If Gloria Gaynor is getting a Kennedy Center honor, you got to play I Will Survive. If George Strait's getting inducted, well, I guess there are probably 50 records I could have played, but since I am in Texas, how about this classic as George, King George? And I just want to be at the after party to see George Strait and Paul Stanley and Gloria Gene Simmons. keep Gloria Gaynor away from Gene Simmons. I don't even know how that's going to go. It's going to be delightful, as today's broadcast escapade has been. And I've got a crazy idea. Why don't we do this again tomorrow? Now, the subjects will be different. I will say different things. You will say different things, born of whatever's in the news. But I get the opportunity to do this again tomorrow, and I'm very, very grateful. Speaking of gratitude, thank you, Dwayne. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Harley, everybody that helps this whole ship work its way down the channel. And so tomorrow, it's sometimes as the day starts to wind down, you can get a bit of an inkling of what we might talk about tomorrow, what might be big on my morning show tomorrow on 660 a.m. The Answer here in Dallas-Fort Worth. And I have to tell you, these divulgences about Clapper allegedly pushing to compromise the normal steps in order to rush this false Russiagate narrative in 2017. How much of this are we going to tolerate before this becomes the seething news story that it deserves to be? Here's a little something. Speaking of limits of tolerance, what would you think if Melania Trump sued Hunter Biden? That's just fun to say. What would it be for? Well, apparently, does Hunter? Everybody else does. Why not him? Does he have a podcast or something called Hunter Biden Returns? Oh Lord, please go back. Well, apparently Hunter, and he's not the first person to get in trouble for this, is he? Saying that Jeffrey Epstein is how Melania met Donald. So Melania's attorney, hanging $1 billion of notice out front for Hunter and his attorneys, said that these false, defamatory, disparaging, and inflammatory statements made about her must be rescinded. The episode needs to be taken down. And you know this was it. It was done in the video interview, that interview with Channel 5 with Andrew Callahan. There you go. That was that Hunter Biden Returns was this guy's podcast. And Hunter, remember his various profane rants that had everybody saying, well, at least he's authentic. He was basically talking about the Epstein factor and how Donald and Melania Trump got together. Well, speaking of women who ain't having it, Judge Jeanine and also the First Lady of the United States. You know what I'm having? A great time every day when I get to talk to you. Follow me on the old Twitter X at Mark Davis, M-A-R-K Davis. Appreciate you.